Hello everyone and welcome to the Smashy Business Show. Today is Monday, April 28, 2025. I'm Abdul Majid Awan.
And I'm Warid Ahmed, and we have a great show for you today. Today we're going to be discussing how Saudi Arabia's public investment fund has raised its target for assets under management by 2030 to $2.67 trillion. And secondly, Saudi Arabia and Qatar have agreed to pay back Syria's debt to the World Bank. Thirdly, Trump is poised to offer Saudi Arabia over $100 billion in an arms package, according to Reuters. And Trump wants a free U.S. ride in the Suez Canal. And finally, there is an all-time 100 million dirhams record set at the latest RTA number plate auction.
Let's quickly jump into the stories. The very first story is very interesting. There was a report published, and all these numbers are from that Saudi PIF and Saudi Vision 20 report. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund has raised its 2030 target when Vision 2030 also concludes. They have target for assets under managed to 2.67 trillion, up nearly 43% from its original goal of 1.87 trillion. The move follows a strong performance last year with PIF assets reaching 941.3 billion. Now we have an exact number. We usually say it's nearly 1 trillion, but yeah, 941.3 I think is nearly 1 trillion. So this is the exact number of their assets under management, and it exceeded its 880 billion target according to a new Vision 2030 report.
Now, the fund's rapid growth, 390% increase since 2016, has been driven by a very proactive, diversified strategy. This includes a 40% portfolio exposure to Saudi companies and major investments, both domestically and internationally. Now, PIF is central to Saudi Arabia's Vision 30 plan to diversify its economy away from oil, and I do really think that that's the main reason.
Yeah. Despite the growth, the PIF's international investment spending dropped by 37% last year to $19.9 billion. It also saw a 24% decline in its U.S. equity profile and sold $13 million worth of shares in companies like Activision, Blizzard, and Live Nation.
Now, Governor Yasser Al-Rumayyan signaled a major strategy shift last year, with the fund planning to cut its foreign portfolio by about a third and focus more heavily on domestic opportunities. Now, key local holdings include Madin, Sabiq, and Saudi National Bank. Now, the fund also launched new initiatives such as Riyadh Air, the EV infrastructure company, and Lifera and pharmaceuticals.
The fund's efforts have created 1.1 million jobs and established 93 new companies across Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, private sector investments across PIF projects reached $37.3 billion between 2021 and the third quarter of 2024.
Now, Vision 2030 progress has exceeded expectations in areas like economic diversification and social development. Now, the initiative will enter its third and final phase in 2026, focusing on sustaining private sector growth and reducing reliance on government support.
It's a very big story. The report is so enlightening, to be honest. And the main thing is that they've exceeded their targets. 880 billion was their plan by the end of this year. Last year, 2024, and they are at 941.3. We have the exact number finally.
I think for me, Majid, what really caught my eye, it's the fact that, as you said, PIF has increased jobs to 1.1 million. Yeah. Was that the specific number in Saudi Arabia? And the reason why that really caught my attention is because just last week, me and Majid were discussing how during Q1 of 2025, so the first few months of the year, what ended up happening is that, in the UAE, they had to, cut the amount of jobs that they're offering. Yeah. And that's because of rising costs and because of corporate tax. And the same was also seen, I believe, in Qatar and in Bahrain, and the one country in the Gulf region that, in fact,
showed a lot of numbers. 3.5% job growth.
It was 3.5% increase. It was Saudi Arabia. Yeah. So now we can clearly see what the reason for that is, that PIF is definitely attributing a lot to that. And to me, honestly, Majid, with countries, nothing signals growth more than available jobs.
Yeah.
You know, more than available jobs that are maintaining people's livelihoods. Because in the end of the day, that's what matters.
Yeah.
You know, keeping your people in jobs.
And more on Saudi Arabia. Today, it's going to be a lot of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and Qatar have decided to pay back Syria's debt to the World Bank, and it's an outstanding debt to the World Bank, which it's a move expected to revive the institution's support for the war-torn nation Syria. In a joint statement on Sunday, the finance ministry said they agreed to cover Syria's nearly $15 million. A lot of people are confused about it. On social media, everyone is asking, is it 15 billion or million? You have to realize it's not the whole thing that they're paying off. It's just the arrears. Arrears are the amount that you have to pay minimum to get another tranche of the money. So the debt itself is very big. It's just this amount that Saudi and Qatar will pay, and that will make Syria eligible for more funding. So yeah, it's $15 million in debt during the World Bank and IMF meetings held this month in Washington. This was the joint statement by Saudi and Qatar.
Now, regarding this, no, it's okay.
Sorry, it stopped working.
1 second.
But yeah.
So now Syria's foreign ministry welcomed the decision, calling it a step toward accelerating the country's recovery and reconstruction efforts after 14 years of conflict. Now, since the fall of Bashar al-Assad's government last December, Saudi Arabia and Qatar have emerged as key supporters of Syria's new leadership.
And the payment is expected to unlock new funding from the World Bank for Syria's critical sectors. Although details were not provided, the statement emphasized that the move would pave the way for renewed development activities that had been frozen for more than a decade thanks to Bashar al-Assad's rule.
Now, meanwhile, Qatar has also begun supplying Syria with natural gas through Jordan to alleviate widespread electricity shortages. However, Western sanctions on Syria imposed during Assad's rule continue to pose major obstacles to large-scale reconstruction projects.
While the Trump administration has not formally recognized the new Syrian government led by Ahmed al-Shara, Washington has eased some restrictions. Meanwhile, the European Union and Britain have already begun rolling back certain sanctions, offering hope for Syria's gradual reintegration into the global economy. The very nice thing about it is that we heard about Qatar, remember, that they'll pay the public...
They're financing Syrian government salaries.
Sector, yeah. But now Saudi has also jumped in, and this is the very first instance that Saudi has publicly helped them with money and support. Also, the joint statement was very nice. It was a very long read, but the main part that I focused on, they didn't just promise money. They also asked everyone else, like IMF, World Bank, whoever can support Syria in their reconstruction, that please restart your funding, help them. Like, it's just a kickstart that Syria needs, and they have everything. They're one part of Middle Eastern country. Me and Vard, we have this discussion always that when you look at Middle East, you look at some countries, they're doing so great that the world has their eyes on them. And then there's Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, which are war-struck, conflict-struck. There's so many things happening in them that they're not able to live up to their potential. They have the potential.
It's not even just about potential, Majid. I just think the media coverage there is completely unfair.
Yeah.
I think what the Gulf, the advantage that they have is, you know, they have great platforms like Smashy Business, you know, Al Arabiya, Al Jazeera, you know, many that are reporting on them. You know, these nations, like, they deserve more justice. Like, for example, I'll give you a story that it just clicked in my mind that this was not something that people know about. So basically, in Sudan, Majid, there is this brand of biscuits. It's called Baraka. It's called Biscuit Baraka. And it's like they're the biscuits that everyone in Sudan loves. They're completely famous. Guess what? They've actually rented out a factory in Egypt, and they are now producing them again.
Nice.
And you know how I realized this? Basically, we got it as a gift from family friends. And I looked at the box, and I'm like, where are they producing this? Because we all know it's not in Sudan. And I looked at the biscuits. I looked at the the description behind, and it was like a location in Cairo, and I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me that we all got back the biscuits that we love so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is this not a big piece of news? Why has this not been reported on? So it's these stories that like shine and are so special to so many people's hearts. And I was telling Majid this, and it's a promise I'm going to make, that I'm definitely going to start reporting on that stuff better, because they do deserve that coverage. And with Qatar and Saudi, why do you think they're so involved? What do you think it's motivated by, specifically Qatar? Because this is not the first time we see that they have stepped in.
Qatar has always been this one country which, whenever you see the news, they always try to help everyone. I think there's two reasons, not hidden reasons like the public reasons, but it's very clear they want to be the main player in the game that is happening in the world. They want to be a part of whatever the world is shrinking into. The world is shrinking towards
You think it's
Middle
shrinking?
East. Shrinking as in the power dynamics are shrinking towards the Middle East. And it's always Saudi, it's always UAE, their leaders, their governments, their policies, their funds that is being talked about. Qatar wants to be a part of that conversation. Right now, it's by country debate. They want to make it a triad, I think, where they are also considered the main player. They have been. The only problem is their biggest fund is equal to one of the third largest fund in Abu Dhabi. Their fund is 550 billion, the Qatar Investment Authority, which is a sovereign wealth fund. And they want to grow it. They want to grow it to a point where everyone is like, oh, Qatar Investment Authority, oh, ADIA, and oh, PIF. So they want to compete with the best in their region.
Yeah.
And that is why you will see them in every political scene and every business scene.
Not just every single political scene.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get on that. I think what's so interesting, it was something that I was reading, and someone was basically saying that Qatari royals own more in London than the king himself.
Yeah.
And
Real estate wise.
that for me, that was such an interesting statement, because when you actually look at the numbers, 20% of the stake of Heathrow's airport is controlled by Qatar Investment Authority.
They made that deal last year. It was a very big story.
But Majid, it gets more interesting. Harrods, which
Harrods
a lot of rich, people frequent, was acquired in 2010 for 1.5 billion euros by Qataris. And then for Sainsbury, the second biggest shareholder, again, is Qatar Investment Authority. And then the Shard was funded by Qatar Investment Authority, 2 billion euros. And finally, the Canary was acquired for 2.6 billion euros.
Yeah.
I think this is really interesting. We're seeing that PIF is trying to scale back its international investments, but for Qatar, these international investments are more important than ever.
It's always the same. You see, PIF, the playbook that they had, they invested so much outside. They made money out of those investments, and then they were like, okay, now we have a stable stream of income from outside investments. So let's not invest more outside. Let's focus inside now on our startups.
On the NEOM project.
You see at not even NEOM, even you look at the other SMEs and MSMEs and startups, they've redirected all their investments. There's this PIF venture capitalist wing, Sanabil. That is one thing that invests in startups. And if you see the last 6-7 months that I've been following it, nearly all of their investment, nearly 80% of their portfolio companies are now Saudi. They had investments outside. They invested in literally big startups outside, US, Silicon Valley. They went there. Now they made money. Now they're coming back and localizing it. The PIF governor, Yasser Al-Rumayyan, as he said that we're going to drop 18 to 20% of our foreign investments and come back, invest in the country, in our own startups, in our own ideas. So that is the idea. Qatar is at this stage. They're investing outside. Once they realize they've stabilized, they have the money coming in regularly now from those investments, they'll go back to their locals. And I saw that at Web Summit firsthand. There was like nearly 300 or 400 startups, and out of those, nearly 110 were Qatari made, like Qatar owned, homegrown startups. I met university professors who, with their students, have started projects, and eventually they came out of the university. The kids, they came out, they're working on their startup, and the teachers took leave and they're like, okay, now we're running business with you. So it's such a nice environment there. It's just that eventually they are becoming a part of the mainstream conversation.
You mean Qatar?
Yeah.
But with Qatar,
Now you will see Saudi, UAE, and Qatar always in the
But
conversation.
you know what it also is with Qatar? They've made strategic moves in specific industries.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you a really good example, Majid. The NBC, it was founded in the 90s, and obviously they had such a quick rise with NBC 3, NBC 4. I think one of my favorites, NBC Bollywood. That one was great. But there was something that they didn't capitalize on, that Al Jazeera put their foot in that first, and it was this idea of a 24-hour channel.
Yeah.
And it was actually Al Jazeera, which is Qatari based, which launched it first before Al Arabiya. So Al Arabiya saw that and they were like, okay, we're gonna catch up to you guys, but we're going to do it in a more diplomatic way. So I think that in terms of media, Qatar really does stand out. Al
Jazeera, obviously.
they're reporting. It's great.
Yeah,
it's
whenever I have to reference something, I go to Al Jazeera because it's a very nice, balanced view from the Middle East towards outside. It's not how West or looks towards us. It's how the Middle East looks at the world and Middle East itself. So they give you a very nice inside perspective of things. Let's go back to one of our giants again, Saudi Arabia. So the United States is preparing to offer Saudi Arabia an arms package worth well over $100 billion, according to 6 sources who spoke to Reuters. A major proposal is expected to be announced during US President Donald Trump's upcoming visit to the kingdom in May.
Now, this offer follows Biden administration's earlier but unsuccessful attempt to finalize a defense pact with Riyadh. Now, Biden's plan had linked access to advanced U.S. weaponry with Saudi Arabia, halting Chinese arms purchases and limiting Beijing's investments. It is unclear whether the Trump administration's package carries similar conditions.
A U.S. defense official told Reuters, quote unquote, our defense relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is stronger than ever under President Trump's leadership. End of quote. The official added that security cooperation remains a key part of U.S.-Saudi partnership.
Now, sources say Lockheed Martin could supply a range of advanced systems, including C-130 transport aircraft, missiles, and radars. Now, RTX Corporation, formerly Raytheon Technologies, is also expected to play a major role. Now, other suppliers mentioned include Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and General Atomics.
And all companies either declined to comment or referred questions back to the US government. Foreign military sales are government-to-government transactions. A Lockheed spokesperson noted, he said, I won't comment on it. Both the White House and Saudi government have yet to respond to requests for comments by Reuters. The main thing is that if he wants $1 trillion, he has to put up an arms deal, because arms are one of the biggest industries that a lot of people invest in the US for. Even last time in 2017 when Trump went, out of the $350 billion-ish deal that they signed, nearly $120 billion was the arms deal. So it was nearly half of the deal that Trump made at that point, like how many years ago? Nearly 8 years ago. And now he wants nearly that same deal. The only problem last deal was out of the $350 billion deal, only $13.4 billion was carried out. So that's also going to be a problem. There was this murder of a journalist. Because of that, the Biden administration, the Senate of the US, they stopped their weapons sales to Saudi Arabia. So it became a very business to complicated to political to something.
Shouldn't exactly be trusted, and you can clearly see what Biden's priorities were, because
they
remember,
wanted to block China.
Not even
Saudi
block
also.
China. Remember, we covered it right before Biden stepped down. What happened? He gave Israel $8 billion in an arms deal,
but Trump also came and gave them. But
he did too. But I'm saying that he couldn't finalize the pact with Saudi Arabia in time. But he had all the time in the world to send $8 billion in arms to Israel. So
they expedited the process. The whole process is very long. You finalize a proposal, you take it to the Senate, they approve it, they question you, and then eventually it gets approved. This time they expedited the process before Biden left, and then at the start of Trump era, they also expedited it. So they're sending a lot of free stuff to Israel, but they're asking Saudi Arabia to buy stuff, military equipment. So it's very interesting.
And it's also strange because they're asking Egypt for a free
Yeah.
ride in the Suez Canal.
Suez Canal. So
Now-
President Donald Trump is calling for free passage of American ships through the Panama and Suez canals, renewing his focus on expanding U.S. influence over key global waterways. Posting on Truth Social, not an X, shows a lot of fighting between Musk and Trump, I think. But he posted on Truth Social, he emphasized that, in his view, the canals would not exist without U.S. involvement.
Now, Trump said he has directed Secretary of State Marco Rubio to, quote, immediately take care of the matter. While he has previously pushed for the removal of Chinese port operators from Panama, Saturday's post widened his attention to the Suez Canal, which connects the Mediterranean to the Red Sea through Egypt.
And the Suez Canal, built under British colonial rule starting in 1859, remains open to all vessels, regardless of nationality. Under an 1888 convention, Egyptian officials reaffirmed that commitment as recently as November.
Now, Trump's broader economic push includes tariffs and proposed fees at U.S. ports aimed at curbing Chinese dominance in commercial shipping and shipbuilding. Now, U.S. officials argue that China's rise in shipbuilding was fueled by unfair practices that have weakened American industries.
And meanwhile, Panama in February agreed to allow free passage for U.S. warships after Trump criticized Chinese influence over the canal. A separate plan involving C.K. Hutchison's Panamanian port assets and BlackRock-led consortium has faced pushback from China and financial disputes with Panama. The very, very weird thing about this whole case is that it doesn't happen anywhere. I remember there's this waterway which goes through Bosphorus, Turkey border. So Turkey signed a 100-year agreement when the Ottoman Empire fell that all the European ships will be allowed to go free from that area. It recently ended in 2023. Turkey still hasn't renewed the contract, and they haven't still put tariffs on the European ships passing through. That's one case. So waterways are very complicated in this thing. The funny thing is Suez Canal is owned by the Egyptian government under a company that they made, Suez Canal Management or something authority. So they made a company and Suez Canal is owned by that. So if basically he's telling them to give it a free passage, he's telling Egypt to let go of billions of dollars. Because I remember we did a story recently where President Sisi, he clearly said that they lost $2 billion because of the Houthis blocking that Suez Canal pathway, as they want something from Israel. They want them to end the genocide in Gaza. Very complicated again, but very simply, nearly $8 to $9 billion of money, just that route, ships traveling from that route, is added to Egypt's economy. So he's basically saying this, just let go of $3-4 billion for us because we are so great.
I think for me, his statement does not make any sense because he's basically saying
that... A lot of things
that
he says doesn't make any sense.
No, you're right. He's basically saying that the Suez Canal would not exist without the U.S., but the U.S. has nothing to do with it. I mean, in, I believe it was 1875, Egypt, they had to allow the French, I believe it was, the French and the British to control it because of the fact that they had financial difficulties. But then what ended up happening is that in 1956, once again, the Suez Canal was nationalized by this president, and he was really special. And like he took the entire like Egyptian nation by surprise with his actions. It was something Nasser. His name was something Nasser, but he was very famous.
Egyptian president?
Yeah, he was in Egypt. Oh, found his name, Gamal Abdel Nasser. But so it has nothing to do with the U.S. They're completely not tied to it whatsoever. I think this is just a very feeble attempt at a takeover that won't exactly work.
He's just being himself. That's the problem with Trump. Any day, if he doesn't cause drama, I think it doesn't work for him. He wakes up, he has a dream, he wakes up and he says something, and everyone is like, what's happening? But
I think he needs to think before he speaks.
A lot. And he needs to talk to people, tell them his ideas, and they should be like, bro, don't. I think that is what should happen. But yeah, he's the POTUS, he's the president of the United States, and it gives him the power to say weird stuff and get away with it. But let's come back to local story. The Ways Roads and Transport Authority (RTA) has set a new record, generating nearly 100 million dirhams at its latest exclusive number plate auction. The 118th open auction took place on Saturday evening, April 26, at the Grand Hyatt Dubai, marking the highest proceeds ever recorded for an RTA auction.
Now, the highlight of the evening was plate CC22, which fetched 8.3 million dirhams. Now, it was followed closely by BB20, sold for 7.52 million dirhams, and BB19, which brought in 6.68 million dirhams. Now, other notable sales included AA 707 at 3.31 million dirhams. I think this one's probably my favorite. And AA 222 at 3.3 million dirhams.
A total of 90 exclusive number plates were showcased, featuring 2, 3, 4, and 5-digit configurations. The codes ranged across AA, BB, CC, IJ, OP, TU, V, W, X, Y, and Z. While the plate's nominal value stood at 16.5 million dirhams, the final bid surged to nearly 100 million dirhams.
Now, interested bidders were required to register online or at customer happiness centers, holding a Dubai traffic file and submitting 25,000 dirhams security checks. Now, all purchases were subject to 5% of that, with payment options available through credit card or the RTA app.
It's a very interesting process. You remember last time this auction happened?
We did discuss it. And then Mohammed bin Ghati, he
through
bought,
his brother, he got a license. Yeah, that was a confusion also. But the closest, you remember the kid who was bidding on the behalf
who
was his
bargained
father.
for his dad. Honestly, his father is he's so
He's the
smart.
coolest father right
because
now.
Not just coolest, but I also think that people take empathy on children. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if a really special luxurious item was there and then a kid just wanted to grab it, I think all the grown-ups would be like, we're really bad people if we don't let that kid take it. So I think his father was really smart for that.
Tactic by his father. I think he was busy, otherwise
Probably.
he wouldn't have, like the word that you use, he wouldn't have deeped it so much.
But you know what it is with this though? I think I think what we're seeing is the expansion of the RTA. The fact that you can use the RTA app to do something like this, to get your own new license plate. So they're really advancing their services. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you for tuning into the Smashy Business Show. Make sure to follow us across all social media channels at Smashy Business and stay ahead with our daily newsletter. You'll find the subscription link in the description.
This has been a Smashy Business Show, a Smashy Business production, part of the Augustus Media Podcast Network. A big shout out to our 1.6 million monthly listeners. Thanks to you, we're able to do this. If you're one of them, take care, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.